Good day, it's January 12, 2026. The story that continues to dominate the headlines in the world is taken by force of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his First Lady wife Celia Flores. I'm Joe Buban, welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Sam Buban. Welcome to this week's edition.
Nicolas Maduro, who was taken out of Venezuela by U.S. military forces and brought to the United States to face criminal drug trafficking charges, created a divided opinion among members of Congress and state officials from both Democrats and Republicans. The question remains whether Trump's action of sending commando forces to take custody of the Venezuelan president was legal. Many legal scholars and professors of international law said it violated international law and norms. Even Republicans in the House of Representatives called it an illegal act, not only because it was not authorized by Congress and it violated international norms. The United Nations Security Council, of which the U.S. is a permanent member, condemned the U.S. for the incident, and that included China and Russia, who were loud in their condemnation. The members of the Association of South American Nations, including European countries, likewise condemned the attack in Venezuela and the capture of President Maduro, and the violation of UN Charter against attack and kidnapping of heads of state. Maduro was taken by U.S. Special Forces on the early morning hours of January 3. In a military attack in the capital, Caracas, that also included bombing of a military base near the capital. Maduro and his wife were taken to a jail in New York where they were arraigned on drug trafficking charges. They both pleaded not guilty before a senior federal judge, Alvin Hallerstein. The former Venezuelan president was represented by a high-profile defense lawyer, Barry Pollack. During the arraignment, Maduro spoke in court and said he was kidnapped from his country and is still president of Venezuela, and said is not guilty of any charges. The former First Lady, Celia Flores, also pleaded not guilty. But let's take a look of the judge and the defense lawyer in the case. Judge Alvin Hallerstein is a 92-year-old judge who got his lifetime appointment from President Bill Clinton and had overseen several high-profile cases. Among them was Trump's petition to transfer his Florida case to a state court, where Judge Hallerstein denied that request. Lawyer Barry Pollack was the defense attorney who had Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, acquitted in criminal court for espionage and national security crimes. Pollack also represented the chief executive of Enron, who was charged criminal fraud and misrepresentations that brought the Texas energy giant Enron to collapse. Many legal scholars are anticipating a meticulous legal fight for Maduro by Barry Pollack, where most of the career prosecutors in the Justice Department are no longer there and were either fired by Attorney General Pam Bondi or had resigned.
In relation to the Justice Department under Pam Bondi, that is acting as Trump's personal lawyer, as many in the legal circles describe it, the House of Representatives is now looking at a possible articles of impeachment against the Attorney General. House Democrats and some Republicans are looking at blatant violation of the Epstein Files Transparency Act that was signed into law, where Pam Bondi had not been releasing unredacted Epstein files under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Files were being released to the House and the public of thousands of pages that mostly contain blacked out pages. Lawmakers are increasingly unhappy with the DOJ's decision to heavily redact or withhold documents from Congress. Democrats and Republicans alike criticized the omissions, while Democratic lawmakers accused the Justice Department of intentionally withholding the release of at least one image of Donald Trump. Senate Minority Leader suggests it could end one of the biggest cover-ups in American history. Congressman Ro Khanna, a Democrat, and Congressman Thomas Massie, a Republican, who co-sponsored the bill, said they are exploring options on how to compel Pam Bondi to release the full Epstein files without reduction, including a possible inherent contempt of Congress with substantial daily penalty until it is complied with. In a survey on the platform X among 46,000 users, more than 30,000 Republican respondents favored impeaching Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General. Trump administration officials said the release complied with the law and that its redaction were crafted only to protect victims of Epstein, the disgraced and convicted sex offenders accused of trafficking and abusing hundreds of underage girls.
House Speaker Mike Johnson got another bad news last week after the departure of Marjorie Taylor Greene, when the Republican majority in the House of Representatives shrunk even further. A longtime Republican Congress member, Doug LaMalfa of Northern California, suddenly died on January 6 last week. That leaves the number of Republican representatives to 218, with the Democrats at 213. What does that mean for the Republican Party to pass a bill? Well, with just 431 members total of the House of Representatives at the moment, Speaker Mike Johnson can only afford 2 defectors voting with the Democrats to kill a bill by Republicans, or 2 Republicans voting with the Democrats to pass a Democratic-sponsored bill. Things could just go even worse by January 31, when a special House election in New Jersey would take place, and a Democrat is favored to win that seat, bringing the Democrats in the House to a total of 214, and a runoff election in Texas for the seat of the late Democrat Representative Sylvester Turner of Houston. By that time, Speaker Johnson will only have 1 vote majority to push any bill, or the Democrats will only need 1 defector vote from the Republican side to pass a Democrat-sponsored bill. His position as the Speaker is now even in peril because only 2 Republican House members are needed to replace him if a vote is called on a motion to vacate in order to replace him. Donald Trump also sounded off a warning that if the Democrats retake the House in the midterm election, they are going to impeach him. He said this hoping to rally Republicans that the 2026 midterms is a must-win for the Republicans.
Let's go into news about the U.S. economy at the end of 2025. There are 2 competing narratives of where the U.S. economy stands at the end of 2025, in spite of the barrage of challenges over the course of the year. The nation's top economists and other economic experts view the 2025 economy of the U.S. as strong heading into the first quarter of 2026. Financial pros tend to focus on macroeconomic indicators such as GDP, inflation, and unemployment numbers, calling the 2025 experience as a surprise economic durability. That the economy surged to its fastest place in 2 years, the last year of Biden to the first year of Trump. They also describe 2025 as a resilient economy. The U.S. economy is experiencing a steady growth and is expected to rise between the rate of 2.9% and 3.2%, unemployment at 4.1% and a moderate inflation of 2.4%. But it is yet to be seen as we look forward to the indicators at the end of the first quarter of 2026. But many of us, ordinary people, these numbers means nothing. The disconnect partly reflects the differences in how consumers and economists tend to judge the nation's economic performance, like the numbers on GDP, inflation, unemployment. Consumers are more likely to assess the economy based on pocketbook issues like food prices, healthcare costs, and housing. There's no denying or twisting the fact that prices of all consumer goods had gone up after the imposition of tariffs by the Trump administration. With the exception of gasoline prices that fluctuates daily, but close to the prices during the pandemic when people were not traveling and gas prices were down. Ordinary Americans are not convinced that their lives are better than 13 months ago, and many are grappling with heightened anxiety about affordability. Millions will be living under utter austerity to be able to pay for rent and the cost of going to a daily job. How consumers feel about the economy has always been a factor on how they vote in general elections. Such bad news for them is directed against the party in power in every midterm election like this year. There was an unnerving news from Minnesota last week, moments after DHS Secretary Kristi Noem deployed close to 2,000 more agents to that state. A U.S. citizen, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, was shot to death by an unidentified ICE agent. Counts of witnesses and the state and local officials conflicted with the White House accounts of the incident. The administration appears to be doing a cover-up, according to several officials and witnesses at the scene. This happened amid the state officials asking ICE agents to leave their state. People of Minnesota are very angry, according to a local official, and so many furious as Kristi Noem described the action of Renee Good as a terrorist act to justify an ICE agent killing her. Local officials demanded the arrest of the ICE agent. The victim, a white American woman, leaves behind a 9-year-old son, an orphan. The child's father died a few years ago. No legal action had yet been taken by the family against the ICE agent or Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary.
In Nevada politics, the campaign season is ramping up for the June 9th primary election. Here are some Filipino Americans running in the primary, hoping to go into this year's general election. We have Maria Teresa Hank, who is running as a Democrat for the State Assembly, District 9, a seat that will be vacated by Assembly Speaker Steve Yeager. District 9 is the southwest of Las Vegas, one of the faster-growing community in Las Vegas. Speaker Yeager announced that he is no longer seeking re-election to the State Assembly on the same day that Floor Majority Leader Sandra Jauregui also said she is not running for re-election. Both districts are considered safe Democrats. Another Filipina running in the Democratic primary is Mindy Lloyd, a well-known community leader and advocate for battered and trafficked women, who is executive director of the nonprofit Bamboo Bridges, who runs a chain of safe houses for rescued women who were victims of sex trafficking. Mindy Lloyd is running for a seat in the County Board of Commissioners, District F. That seat will be vacated by Commissioner Justin Jones, who decided not to seek re-election. Ms. Lloyd this time is running as a Democrat, who has received the endorsement of Justin Jones and many other state lawmakers.
Erica Mosca, who was first elected in 2022 and now serving her second term and representing Assembly District 14, is seeking re-election for a third term. Ms. Mosca, who is very involved with the Filipino-American community and well engaged to her constituents of District 14 on the east side of Las Vegas. Another incumbent is County Treasurer Ken Diaz, who was first elected to his county-wide office in 2022, is running for re-election. Ken Diaz was born and raised in Guam to Filipino parents who came from the Ilocos region in the Philippines. One Filipino-American incumbent official is not due for re-election until 2028, is Aaron Bautista, who was elected to the Board of University Regents in Nevada's higher education. The past 6 years have shown Filipino-Americans aspiring for elected office and are gaining success. To our Filipino-Americans in Nevada, register to vote if you are not registered yet, and vote on the primary election if you are registered to a party, and vote in the general election in November. Remember, your vote always counts. Be wise, don't vote against yourself, but vote for one who will protect your interest and the community.
2025 likewise saw the election of two mayoral candidates running as socialists, Zoran Mamdani in New York City and Katie Wilson of Seattle. Both ran under the progressive, populist, and socialist platform. While only one got all the media and public attention, both campaigned on reducing homelessness, housing affordability, and efficient mass public transit. Party and ideology labels were not issues during these two elections, as voters were focused on matters of the economy, housing, inflation, and tariffs, as what mattered to them most. Both got elected as mayors in their respective cities, in spite of that corporate political action committees spent millions spreading smears and fear-mongering about these future mayors. Both were already sworn in as mayors on the first day of the year.
Now let's go back to the challenges to Pam Bondi's Justice Department. A few weeks ago, we ran a story about a federal judge, Cameron Curry, throwing out the criminal prosecution of former FBI Director James Comey and New York State Attorney General Letitia James because the acting U.S. Attorney was on the job unlawfully because she was illegally appointed. Last week, another federal judge who was appointed by Donald Trump is giving the same former acting U.S. Attorney, Lindsay Halligan, 7 days to explain in writing why she is still on the job signing in court documents as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. The demand for a written explanation from Judge David Novak comes with a threat of disciplinary consequences for her. The rule in place that has been used time and time again before Trump is that the president can appoint an interim U.S. attorney for 120 days and ask the Senate to confirm his nominee within that time period. When Pam Bondi fired an interim U.S. attorney to replace him with a White House lawyer, Lindsay Halligan, the clock does not reset to another 120 days. But that's what the DOJ were trying to do, that federal judges in multiple jurisdictions had disqualified at least 5 acting U.S. attorneys for being on the job illegally based on the 120 days rule. The DOJ made attempts to make things unnoticeable, but judges after judges had admonished the DOJ for having acting U.S. attorneys that should not have been on the job continuing to sign their name on court filings. Judges are getting fed up with these violations of the law. We'll update you next week what Lindsay Halligan has to say to Judge David Novak in her response.
U.S. Senator Ruben Gallego, a Democrat of Arizona, is putting a bill for vote on the Senate floor called War Powers Act regulation, and focuses particularly limiting the power of President Trump to invade Greenland without Congress authorization. Trump had been publicly saying about taking Greenland for the U.S., although Republican senators and brushing off the notion that Trump would actually do it. More and more senators from both sides of the aisle are taking this seriously as a possibility. Taking over Greenland by force or invasion is even more complicated than the attack on Venezuela already is, because Greenland, although a semi-autonomous region, is owned by Denmark, another NATO nation, just like the US. Such move by Trump, if he ever does that, tantamounts to an invasion of a territory of a NATO member, for which NATO is bound to protect as part of NATO's Mutual Defense Pact. What the bill being put forward by Senator Gallego is to curtail Trump's ability to order an invasion of another country at his whim. Trump had publicly made pronouncements about invading Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, and Greenland. We will take a commercial break. Please stay with us for the world news portion.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to the polls. Now for our world news. In the West African nation of Burkina Faso, the military junta claims a plot to assassinate the leader of Burkina Faso was thwarted. In a report from BBC, a conspiracy to assassinate Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has failed, the Burkina Faso government stated. In their press release, the clever plan was devised by Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Namiba, Traoré's military officer who was removed in September 2022, according to the security minister in a late-night broadcast. Our intelligence services intercepted these operations in its last hours. They had planned to assassinate the head of state and subsequently target other critical institutions, including civilians. That was the statement by Mahamadou Sana, who also claimed that the operation was funded by nearby Côte d'Ivoire, or Ivory Coast. Colonel Namiba and the Ivory Coast government have both declined to comment. Since seizing power, Captain Traoré has faced at least 2 coup attempts and is also grappling with the growing jihadist violence that has forced millions from their homes. Despite these challenges and his authoritarian reputation, the 37-year-old military leader maintains strong popular support and has gained a following across the continent for his Pan-Africanist vision and his criticism of Western influences. According to the security minister, officials discovered a leaked video in which the plotters discussed their plans. In the video, they allegedly discussed how they planned to assassinate the president, either at close range or by planting explosives at his apartment, sometime in 2300 hours local time on Saturday, January 3rd. Following that, they allegedly planned to target more prominent military and civilian officials. Sana said that Namiba had mobilized both army and civilian sympathizers, obtained foreign finance, most notably 70 million African francs, about 125,000 US dollars from Ivory Coast, and planned to destroy the country's drone launch station before foreign forces could intervene. We are conducting and continuing investigations and have made numerous arrests. That's according to the ministry. These people will be brought to justice soon, as the Minister of National Security said on television. Sana claimed that the issue was under control and warned individuals not to be misled into risky schemes due to their inexperience. It is unclear how many people were arrested. Critics, both local and foreign, have accused Traoré of authoritarianism and say his government suppresses dissent, including arbitrary arrest of military officers and restrictions on the media. It is not the first time that the junta has pointed the finger of blame on foreign interference in his affairs at Ivory Coast. These continuing internal power struggles will further heighten regional tensions. Colonel Damiba served as Burkina Faso's leader from January to September of 2022 after seizing power from an elected government. After being ousted, he went into exile in neighboring Togo and said in a message published on social media that he wished his successor every success. We will leave it at that as we are out of time for this broadcast. Please join us again next week here at The Pulse. I'm Sam Buban. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Joe Boban. God bless your week.